I think Turkey is also aware of this changing world. And in fact, Turkey gave some mixed signals to the West, to the United States and the European Union. First of all, Ibrahim Kalın visited. Ibrahim Kalın is the famous person in the Recep Tayyip Erdogan's administration. He visited Brussels. And also President Erdogan said a few weeks ago that he sees Turkey's place in Europe. So how does this effort echo in Brussels corridors?
I mean, at the moment, it doesn't echo so well. That's the reality. At the moment, the situation, what I described before, is the optimal, logical outcome in which Turkey realizes that it has to be as close as possible to its natural ally and partner, which is the EU, but at the same time has more independence because it's not a member. And it will have to negotiate and trade off and get what it wants in this new relationship. But it has to be institutionalized, and accession has to stop. This is the first part. But in order to get there, we have to overcome a hurdle, which is the last 2 decades of deteriorating relations. This is the problem. I can give you the perfect remedy for how our relationship should look. But the problem is that we are currently facing each other, EU and Turkey, and when the diplomats speak, they disagree on many things. And why has this disagreement come about? Well, it's also come about because of the changing dynamic of the world, which has simply made everything much more complicated. But it's also unfortunately come about because we've had 2 decades of an accession process, which we were all told would bring us closer together, but in my opinion, has actually created more and more mistrust. Again, based on the same logic as before, that we keep on telling each other, just do this, just do that, just reform this, just finish this chapter, and then everything will be fine. And the other side says, but we all know that you're going to block me, so why should I make the effort? It just constantly stimulates distrust and distrust and distrust. And it's abrasive. And unfortunately, we've come to the point now where the mistrust after 2 decades has become so bad that Ibrahim Kalın and President Erdogan and many others, also in the CHP, to be honest, it's not only an AKP problem. It's not only an AKP problem. That's a lie. I don't believe that story. I know some people say it, but I don't believe it. It's the general issue. People have lost trust because they know that it didn't work. And on the other side, in the EU, they've also lost immense trust because Turkey in the last few years has started doing things which are regarded as total red lines for the EU. For example, it started becoming revisionist. It started to say, actually, the borders before Turkey were maybe more adequate than after Turkey. You know, certain areas we should have more influence. But the problem is that in the world of today, we respect international law, we abide by international law, and when treaties are signed, we abide by them. And this kind of new revisionism has created an enormous amount of mistrust on the EU side, because all of a sudden they don't know what Turkey is doing. And at the same time, and I think this is very, very important to mention as well, is Turkey has started, well, especially the Turkish government of today, they have started a policy of supporting quite radical elements across the Middle East. And I'm not talking only about Hamas and about parts of the Muslim Brotherhood, but also, for example, the support in Syria and other countries of very radical factions. And these radical factions are alarming the EU and should also be alarming Turkish citizens, because Turkey is the most modern Muslim secular state on earth. And you never know when these radical factions come and start having an impact on your society as well. And that's a serious concern, I believe, that the EU has, and I think a very legitimate concern as well. And I've spoken to so many academics and civil society, and even just like young people in Turkey who are also scared about having these kind of more radical factions sponsored by their government abroad, and what impact they will have on the region and also on Turkey. So these are very, very serious concerns of the EU. Then, of course, the EU is also concerned about other things with regards to the levels of democracy in Turkey and freedom of speech and human rights. You know, of course, it's very, very difficult for the EU to be negotiating with Turkey when every single year there's a deterioration of the media press and freedom in Turkey. I mean, like, you know, when you look at the reports on an annual basis by the OSCE and the Venice Commission, of which Turkey is a member. It's not some random NGO that gets money from God knows where and that does a list. This is the OSCE. Turkey is a leading member. And even the OSCE says it's not credible that Turkey has more journalists in prison than China. So these are concerns which I think are also legitimate, and which I know, as a person who knows Turkey, has friends in Turkey, has worked with Turkey for many years, is not just a concern of the EU, but equally a concern of the whole youth of Turkey today and many of its academics.
So you brought us to a good point, which is the mistrust issues between the partners, like not only the European Union trust Ankara, and also Turkey doesn't trust European Union. So for a final note, and briefly, so what does Turkey and the EU need to do in order to revitalize the lateral relation in future?
Well, I think the first step is we have to admit that each of us did something wrong. That's the first step. I mean, if the EU comes running into negotiations thinking that Turkey is the little brother and that they're wrong on everything, this is the wrong way to start a relationship. And vice versa, if Turkey doesn't want to overcome the fact that accession will not be a reality, but that we will have a special, different, and equal relationship instead, if you cannot overcome that, then we also start from the wrong step or from the wrong approach. So each of us have to swallow some pride. Each of us have to enter the negotiation. And when I say negotiations, not just government to government. Turkey is not some random country on the other side of the world. Turkey is an 80 million large country with a vibrant civil society, full of people who have very different opinions, and we speak to each other. I speak to my counterparts in Turkey, as we're doing right now, academics to academics, universities to universities, NGOs to NGOs, political parties to political parties, from conservative to left wing and God knows what. So we need to speak to one another, and we need to admit that each side did something wrong, and we have to kind of come to an agreement on the problems that were in the past. So, for example, things that, like I mentioned before, 2004 in Cyprus is a scandal, and it was a disgrace, and it was so unfair on Turkey, and the accession process has not exactly been a model example of EU trust and honesty. We have to accept that. Number two, democracy and its lack. Turkey should and cannot go on like that either. This is also something we should admit and hopefully change. And number three, Turkey's revisionism should be toned down, and the sponsoring of these radical factions, especially in the Middle East, should also be regarded as unacceptable. I think these are very important first steps. I'm not saying we're going to solve the Cyprus division, and at the end of the day, that's also a very local division that necessitates the people in Cyprus who want to solve it. But these points, I think, are extremely important just to start with. Now, what could also be done to improve the situation? I mean, I unfortunately don't think that the governments will take a big step. Maybe I will be wrong. Hopefully I will be wrong. I really hope I will be wrong. But I think that us in the civil society, maybe some political parties, civil society, academics, youth organizations, or even religious organizations, you name it, it doesn't matter to me. But the society that can see the truth is not what the governments are saying at the moment. And the governments have their hands tied, and they're also always risk averse, and they don't want to create a fuss, and they're waiting for the other one to act. Well, let the Turkish society and let the EU society act and say, let's make some projects, let's make some programs, let's speak more, let's communicate with one another about what went wrong in the past and what can go right in the future, what we need from each other. That's a good start, in my opinion. And then, of course, on a more technical level, where are the anchors of a better relationship in the future? The EU and Turkey should open negotiations to fully liberalize the customs union. It must include services and agricultural goods. The conditions of such economic reform, which will be enormously beneficial for Turkey, are of course things like judicial independence, media freedom, the reinstatement of parliamentarian immunities. Another thing which is important in this context is visa liberalization and transport policy. They should be included too, and they're long overdue. Turks should be allowed to travel freely in the EU. Key EU member states and Turkey should probably set up working groups. And it doesn't only have to be at a government level. I, for example, work at a think tank that has academic council members throughout the whole region, from Azerbaijan and Ukraine to Turkey, Uzbekistan, Moldova, UK, France, Italy, you name it. We can also set up working groups and have dialogues about moderate elements of Islam and the Muslim brotherhoods in the Middle East. These are important discussions to be had. And if we want to make some progress on trust and what Turkey is doing in, for example, many of the North African countries, but also in the Middle East, a good starting point is to understand to which degree they're supporting moderate or non-moderate elements. And I honestly think that there are large parts of Turkey who would be very interested in this too. Now, another thing which could be done is the EU, through the External Action Service, as well as DEFCO, could start allocating more funding, maybe also with the Turkish government, to cooperate on civil society, business relations, and cultural relations between Turkic countries. So, for example, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and so on. This would be an excellent idea. Hungary today is a member of the Turkish Council as an observer, and within the context of the EU's Central Asia strategy and the EU's connectivity strategy, these are extremely important ways to find common ground with Turkey on how we can look at foreign policy in a positive, business-related way together. I mean, just to give you an example, supply chains in a very changing world will be very important within these Turkic nations. And I think there's a clear common interest between Turkey and the EU on these specific points. And all you need to do in order to understand this is to read the EU's connectivity strategy, transport strategy related to that, as well as the Central Asia strategy from 2019. Another thing which I think is important is that the EU and Turkey should start preparing for an eventual replacement of the accession process. What I said before is important, and a new framework should start with the customs union reform. We can draw lessons from existing studies, exchanges, interviews conducted by international institutions and think tanks on these important thematic areas of common interest, which have to do with conflict resolutions, migration, trade, and we can try to see how some of these areas can be put under a new framework, which is linked to the anchor of economy, which is customs union reform. Finally, I also think that the increasing of funds for Turkish civil society by the EU is very important. Student exchange programs. Very recently, the ENC, where I work together with the Center for Public Policy and Democracy Studies, PODEM, we released a study which basically shows that Turkish students showcase very high level of appreciation for European democracy, for mobility, for prosperity. And it makes total sense. And also the study shows that EU citizens have a lot of respect and high level of appreciation for Turkish society as well. I mean, it just shows again from an empirical basis that students and the younger generations, both inside the EU and inside of Turkey, don't want more walls. They don't want to be confined. They don't want to not be able to travel. They want to be able to go on city trips to Amsterdam and Paris. They want to go and be able to do internships. They want to go and be able to have a fun and enjoyable job opportunity ranging from Ankara to Brussels or Uppsala to Rome. They don't want more barriers. So that's why it's so important that the EU continues to fund and to stimulate student exchanges, Erasmus program, Erasmus Mundus programs, and all these kind of things. Because the danger is that if you diminish the cultural and educational ties between the EU and Turkey, it would basically be a loss of decades of youth investment, which are now showing very, very positive results, especially among urban generations. And it will also simply be unfair for all the young people in the EU and all the young people in Turkey not to be able to travel back and forth freely and meet each other, enjoy each other, and be able to engage in all these areas of economy and jobs and future prospects, which are vital. So I think these are maybe like some of the points which are very much worth mentioning when we think about the future of EU-Turkey relations.
Well, you covered really nicely, and it was really deep dive analysis of the future of the EU relationship as well, EU-Turkey relationship as well. So what I got some notes, and then I'd like to make some final conclusions for this. So each side should stop and admit that they did something wrong, not only Ankara, but also Brussels. And also, for instance, like European Union shouldn't treat that Turkey has no options other than the European Union. And also the Turkey shouldn't consider that Turkey can do whatever they want and the European Union can tolerate Ankara. And you actually, you mentioned really nice thing, which is not only the state actors, it shouldn't be like Brussels to Ankara, but it should be like non-state actors involved in this process as well. And each side should find a new framework for instance, for the new maybe bilateral relationships or some kind of like a anchor for making Turkey to see the European Union as an ally or some or accession partner. And finally, the European Union should increase the funds to allow some students mobilize across the European Union, and also maybe the European Union should support some mobility programs as well. So thank you so much, Samuel. I really appreciate.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your thoughts and opinion. It is always nice to hear different voices, and you really covered well what is going on in Brussels. Hope to see you again, and hope to see you that you are joining us in Deep Dive Politics channel. Take care.
Thank you.